and the head of the Mangaung Correctional Centre, insists that the maximum security facility remains one of the most secure in the country. Joseph Monyante was speaking in Parliament, where the Justice and Correctional Services Portfolio Committee is quizzing officials from the Bloemfontein prison about events leading to convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Bester's escape last year. Bester faked his death during a fire at the Bloemfontein facility, which is privately owned by G4S.
In this regard, MCC has been of the most secure correctional centers in South Africa. Why I'm saying that, on the second sub-bullet, on bullet number 2, is that on over 22 years period, there has been 2 escapes incidents from Mangaung. The second one, which includes this one of Thabo Bester. And then the other one is the inmate that escaped from the outside hospital when he went for medical attention.
Monyante took the committee through the chain of events in the lead up to Bester's escape.
The 3rd May 2022, at 4 o'clock, early hours of the morning, fire was discovered from cell 35, and it was extinguished by the MCC trained personnel. After they have distinguished this fire, that cell was cordoned off. And then from there, what we have picked up is that MCC as well as DCS managed the management. They were called because procedurally, we need to report these things, or whoever that is on duty during the night needs to report to the senior management of MCC as well as to the controller that is on site. That evening, 7:30, a final road check. When the final road check was done, we can confirm that all the 2,928 inmates, they were accounted for. The next day, which was the 4th May 2022, we received a notice of death for inmate Bester, where the pathologist has certified the inmate, which we received from the Department of Health.
Athi Mtongana is attending that session for us. She's in Parliament and she joins us for a debrief. So as the break continues, Athi, we heard from some rather irritated members of the committee at some point, Glenys Breitenbach asking G4S officials how Thabo Bester escaped, and they could not answer, saying theirs is merely to do due diligence and the criminal investigation is for the South African Police Services.
Indeed, Dudu, members of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services here in Parliament did not mince their words when they came down hard on the G4S director that is here, and as well as the MCC, that being the Mangaung Correctional Services Centre's management that is here. They have really been coming down hard on them in asking questions and wanting details about the escape of Thabo Bester from the Mangaung Correctional Services Centre. But I want to pick up from this timeline, Dudu, that you would have heard just a minute ago, where they were detailing the dates and how this escape could have happened and the events that led to the escape. Now, they mentioned a fire which was extinguished, and where in the personnel at the MCC Centre were called to come and extinguish the fire, trained personnel, that's how they put it. Shortly after that, of course, they then called in a nurse and a doctor who was able to, of course, gain access into the scene, where they were actually able to reach the body, assess the body. Long story short, the Department of Health issued a death certificate confirming the death of then, at the time, Thabo Bester. But it is also important to note that in the timeline that we have seen today, Dudu, they've also noted the fact that MCC, the Mangaung Correctional Services personnel, raised concern about a smell of petrol in the possession of Thabo Bester's cell, which is 35 cell, a cell which was apparently in a blind spot area at the Correctional Services facility. So this MCC staff member raised concern about the smell of petrol from the possessions of Thabo Bester, and also important to note what was found in the possession of Thabo Bester in that cell is an authorized laptop and an unauthorized cell phone. So some of the discussions here were around why did he have a laptop, and the responses were then that if an inmate is registered academically to study, then they do have the permission to have a laptop within the facility. And that emanated from a question from ANC's MP, Ngola, who was asking on the grounds that there are reports that Thabo Bester had allegedly been running a multi-million rand company within the prison. And so that's where the question came as to why did he have an authorized laptop. Now, going back to the issue of the timeline, they then traced, of course, the fact that there had been a smell of petrol in the belongings of Thabo Bester, and that's when, of course, the suspicions and the investigations would then start, because SAPS was also then called at a later stage to go back and re-examine on the grounds of the concerns that were raised of the smell of petrol. Another interesting development here to do is that there was a vehicle that went into the Correctional Services facility on the 29th of April. This was before the escape. This was days before the escape. That unauthorized vehicle is suspected to have actually carried the corpse into the Correctional Services facility. That is just another one of the suggestions that the MPs are trying to grapple with as they really struggle to get the answers that they need from G4S as well as MCC personnel that is here. The suggestion is that that unauthorized vehicle could have carried the dead body into the facility. And then there's also well, of course, in that vehicle being a TV stand that was possibly used to carry the corpse. But of course, many of the MPs, as you've alluded to, are really struggling to get the responses that they need, because they feel that G4S is evasive and that they're not giving them the full truth and that they're not being honest. In fact, right at the beginning of this meeting, the first MP to ask questions was saying, well, you are here, G4S, to lie, because the time that they put on the summary of the incidents as to when the fire broke out, when it was detected, is different from that which they were told when they, as members of the committee, actually went to the Correctional Services facility physically for an oversight inspection. Glenys Breitenbach, a DA MP, is one of those MPs that has asked heavy questions to G4S, and I'd like us to listen to some of those exchanges.
It's impossible to believe that this whole operation could have taken place without the greasing of many palms. Where would that money have come from? Whose palms were greased? Which of your officials are living above their means? You don't know, because you don't do lifestyle audits.
No, we don't.
But you don't think you should?
We need to take that recommendation to heart, Honourable Member.
How many G4S employees were on duty at that facility that night?
I'll ask my colleagues to answer that.
Good.
It was 23, Honourable Member, that was on duty.
23 people had to look the other way.
Honourable Member, the investigation proved that the 3 people that was involved, that was suspended, were there. There was 2 people that was moved by the supervisor in charge that formed part of his disciplinary offence. In hindsight, we can now realize that they were moved to be out of sight.
G4S says that all CCTV cameras at the facility were working at the time. However, there was a slight glitch insofar as a CCTV camera that was placed or is located around cell 35, which is actually located at a blind spot area. Very difficult for CCTV cameras to actually monitor what was happening. And also what was picked up through the CCTV cameras are 2 people, unidentified people, that were running towards the administrative area. And question was asked whether those people or any of those 2 people were perhaps Thabo Bester, the G4S director, responding to say there is no way it could have been him. But I'd like us to listen to some of those exchanges which took place around CCTV cameras.
The CCTV system was fully operational except for the cameras covering the Broadway unit where inmate Bester was held and the administrative building. The video cameras for these two buildings function off the same power circuit, and it came to our attention that power to that circuit had failed during the period 1938 on the evening of 2 May and 04:1100 hours on the morning of 3 May.
Athi Mtongana, thank you very much for that update.